course, the Paris deal kicks in, the implementation of that after November 4th, that's the end of the US elections. Having said that, of course, the Chinese are doing a lot more, at least on the face of it, when it comes to climate mitigation. They've been on board with the Paris deal, but the data is showing otherwise. It's saying that their coal plants are increasing, and they will match up with the European Union very, very soon. And they've reduced their subsidies on solar energy. They're also pushing back on every other sort of renewable energy. So going back to the question that you made, the statement that you made, that this is clearly a political decision.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whatever you have, if you think about major decision around the world, only when there is a political decision, then the things start to change. I think just to, you think we are living in the same planet, breathing the same air, and I think that the climate change will affect everybody, big and small country, and then of course big polluter who have the responsibility to do much more than the one who doesn't have the ability to tackle those change. And again, the Secretary General of the UN said it yesterday, said he didn't name countries, but he said the big countries are not taking adequate solution to tackle the warming of the planet. And I think I really believe in a global approach. You can have, it's good to have, national approach and regional approach, but it's like you have a field, you have a land, and you are planting organic vegetable. If your neighbor is not using the organic method, it doesn't make sense. You're not having 100% organic stuff. So it's an international effort. Good to have national and regional approach, but we need a global approach, and we need those who are polluting more than the others to take their responsibility, to assume their responsibility and make change. Otherwise, we are going to a real catastrophe. It's awful for the big country, and it's a catastrophe for the small country and poor countries.
Absolutely. And Ambassador, now you've been someone who's worked in the energy ministry as well as the water ministry. What do you think is the long-term energy solution to climate mitigation?
Let's start maybe with the input from energy sector to the climate change. You know basically that the main reason is increasing of the greenhouse gas emissions, and 76% of this emission is CO2, and 87% of CO2 comes from burning of the fossil fuels like the gas, oil, and mainly coal. So the input from energy sector, of course, is very huge. That's why on the international agenda there is a common understanding.
Add another question to that. Then why are governments still subsidizing fossil fuels and not taxing pollution?
Basically, it's the case of the countries. It depends from the situation. In case of my country, for example, more than 95% of electricity comes from the hydropower, from the renewable sources. If the country has enough resources of renewable energy, why do not use it? Of course, it was a little bit costly in compare with traditional, for example, use of sources like the fossil fuels. But now the technology is improving, the cost is reducing, and I think the case of India shows us that in nearest future we will be witnessing that the many countries will use basically the renewable energy like the solars and etc. And again, it depends from the possibilities of the country or opportunities of the countries, and I hope much that this common understanding that the using of the fossil fuels should be reduced and shifting to renewable source, it's common understanding, and in nearest future we will see it. Nowadays, the percentage or share of renewable energy in the total energy production in the world, it's around 24%.
Right.
In case of India, it's 35%. In case of my country, 95%. But it's being increased, and I hope much that in nearest future we will witnessing the big wallow, big share of the renewable energy in the total energy production in the world.
Yeah, the energy mix has to change for us to sort of go more sustainable. Just want to throw some facts out here that German Watch had come up with yesterday, that one person is forced out of their homes every second because of climate change, which is 20 million people displaced each year. because of climate-related issues. The weather disasters in this particular decade have increased fivefold, and this has, of course, been the warmest decade on record. Now, the COP25 is happening as we speak in Madrid. Ambassador, what are your thoughts and hopes that this conference will bring forward that's not just more conversations, but some more solutions?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I think that already it has been said, but it's important to stress it. The scientific evidence of climate change, now it's very clear. So it's very difficult to doubt. There were times in which you said, yes, it might be, it might not be. But now it's evident that it's there. So now, and you were asking about why fossil energies are there. Well, it's a question of the arithmetics of the cost. So for the time being, and this is why developing countries are insisting in the need of having financing for this technological change, is because with technological change what will come is a reduction in the cost of the renewable energies. When renewable energies are much easier to get than now, then you will see much more effective that kind of shift. Then we come to what my dear colleague of Tunisia was saying. This needs a political decision. When decisions are political, they are not as rational as you can expect them to be. So it's not a question of having the evidence, it's not a question of knowing that we are sharing the same world, it's a question of a political decision. What we have to do is contribute to that political decision to be taken. There are a time in which those political decisions will come. It might not be in this COP, but it's good that we don't lose the will of getting there, the move that we are having. So I believe that this COP, I would really, or as a country, we would rather prefer to have solutions now. But those solutions, you have to also be aware of what's going on in the world and at least keep on the momentum of the countries trying to reach that solution that will come at a point in time. Right. So it's a question of keep on working on that.
Right.